Yes. Yes. So, this morning, I just want to talk about China. It's jive talk to China, but it's true. So I've been thinking about the Chinese civilization and how backwards it's always been. You know, I read a thing in the news today that China expects the rest of the world to follow its lead on this virus. China can't point to an accomplishment. Can't really point to anything that wasn't achieved through totalitarian brutality. You know, the inception of their civilization was, what did they do? Well, the emperor guy got in charge, and he immediately killed all the intellectuals. Anybody that could read or anybody that knew anything, killed them so you can take control. And that's been kind of the hallmark of their civilization. Land of no human rights. Racism real bad. You know, Chinese like number one all the time. And that's what gets me about China. Like, you can really see, you know, racial superiority doctrine is always bad. It never makes any sense. It never works. But it really kills me when you have like billions of Chinese people whose only qualification really for anything is the fact that they were born Chinese, that they were born like Chinese communists. Like, okay, what qualifies you for being like the wet markets that they have with these animals that are dead and moldy and stuff and they have disease, and they go and buy them and they eat them, and like the Westerners come around and say, hey, that's dirty, and they say you're racist, and it's like, okay, well, like, what makes you right, China, about that wet market thing again? Like, what evidence, what kind of justification do you have for that being the right way to do things, and because you're Chinese, because you're born Chinese? Oh, okay. So now that plays out big time. So follow their lead. Well, then you have the thing, and I'm just trying to pick things out about Chinese civilization. I really can't find anything that's good. Break your women's feet. You got a newborn baby girl. Well, snap the arches of her feet and then like duct tape them together so she can put little shoes on, and she can't get away. Forced abortions through the state, right? Come in and forcibly abort somebody's baby. Okay. So, should we follow the lead there? No. Take over Tibet. Why don't you? Take over Tibet and constantly hate on them. And Taiwan too. You can't take over Taiwan for whatever reason, but make sure that China, as a huge country with bajillions of people, make sure that you don't even acknowledge the existence of Taiwan. Okay, just pretend that it's not there, China. With Taiwan, where? What's that? I've never heard. It's right there. It's right in front of your face. I don't see it. Okay, because that's grown up. Yeah, that's an adult, mature response. Okay. I mean, I could keep going, but it's just kind of to the point where this whole China thing, they never earned a damn thing. They love to say they do. They live in a fantasy world, where they could just say something and have it so in their world. It's really driven me crazy for a long time. And I'm glad now. Like this Wuhan flu, putting the tariffs in place, showing that all of their gains and all of their success has been on the backs of America, and other nations, any nation they dealt with, they just exploited, broke the rules, made up rules, so to where it's so blatantly obvious that it's all a lie, that when the chips are down, when China can't get what it wants for the first time in like 30, 40 years on everything, it releases this virus and exports this virus to the rest of the world. Like, it's just it's typical like thug kind of behavior. Oh, don't forget, hey, do you guys want some fentanyl? No, right? China, follow China's lead. Export tons of fentanyl. There's another one. Like, throw that in there. Okay. Fentanyl. But yeah, you start to see like them get checked. Like, hey, okay, we're gonna, it hasn't been any fun hanging out with you, China, so I guess we'll do tariffs and all this, and they just can't stand it, and this flu gets released. You can't tell me that this flu was not manufactured and then exported by them. So, it's the criminal thug response. Like, they never did play by the rules. We checked them. They didn't like it. So they immediately go to like their bread and butter from the land of no human rights, which is just, release a virus, lie, mishandle it, send it everywhere else, blame other people. So I guess the silver lining in all this coronavirus thing is that it really does, it's affecting everybody. It's one thing to where if it doesn't affect a person, they won't care, they won't want to believe it, especially if they're getting enriched or whatever by it. But now this whole thing has really affected the whole world, so it's kind of up front in everybody's face. And I think we're reaching a point where, like, what are you going to do with China? Are you going to continue to do what you've done, which is capitulate, let them do whatever they want, be scared of them, and end up dying of their flu anyways? Or are you going to stand up to them and probably not die in their gulag because you stood up to them? I don't know. I see China really scared, though. I see them scared, lashing out, the more I look into it, the more I see that China is not the future. China should be part of the past. Like, when you look at their monetary system is all messed up. Like, they can't, something about internationally, like, their money is hot. So a lot of it's hot and fake and counterfeit, or the books are cooked, and like currency transactions and stuff, and it's all screwed up because it's fraud. Like, when you look at, okay, China went into Africa. Like, I started reading about this a few years ago, that like China, what it did for the longest time is it pulled everybody's industry into its own country where it could dictate all the terms. Okay, we can work our people to death. We can steal everything. We can like put melon in the milk. We can poison stuff. It doesn't matter. Like, we can pollute. We can do everything inside of China the way that China wants to do it. Okay. Well, they sucked a lot of it in, all this industry, and then they wanted to go outside of their borders. So what China did is it started going outside of its borders, and I heard about them going to Africa and running into all sorts of problems because Africa is not China, obviously. So China goes there to like try to mine the hell out of the whole continent, anything they can. Like, they go there, they lie in their deals, like they don't, they don't allow, they just want to make wherever they are in Africa or wherever they go worldwide a territory of China, so that they can do in your country what they do in their country and justify it through whatever lie or dumb contract law that they've got. That's why it was so important for them to get the TPP, because they didn't want your laws get in the way of their totalitarianism and their communism and their hate and gulags and slave labor and all that stuff. They didn't want that. That's their Achilles heel internationally, is that they can't compete outside of their own country unless they can force everything to go their way, which they will definitely do. So there was no, like, you didn't hear a whole lot about it, but these African countries started to realize, like, hey, this is really predatory. Like, they're not giving us like contracts, construction contracts. They're not giving us positions in these new companies, whatever. Like, they run everything remotely from China the way that they want to. It's all screwed up. And I read an article about how that's their Achilles heel. They can't play by anybody else's rules but their own, and their rules are really just a big cheat sheet for them. So that's why you had the TPP come in to try to, like, destroy every sovereign nation and replace it with their corporate law. Because then they can railroad, steamroll everybody, no problem. So there's that. Yeah, you know, if you look at it, you really look at it like what the Democrats are pushing over here. When you look at the fact that China did abortions, they had a one-child policy for the longest time. And then recently, I think in the past couple of years, China lifted that restriction to where the Chinese people can have, I don't know, more than one kid, maybe as many as they want. But at the same time that China lifted all of its restrictions on abortion domestically for itself, over here, we had that push for late after birth abortion. Do you remember that? They lit up New York City, the Empire State Building, with a pink light to celebrate after birth abortion. So, if you really look, you can see how China plays everybody like that. That's their whole thing. It's really obvious, painfully obvious. So, like, we're going to get to that point. The more that, like, this needs to be the time with this coronavirus that we really start investigating, inspecting, looking over every last little thing that China ever did. Because you'll see that in every aspect of its dealings, is that that's what it does. It wants to take over the world. You know, like, for a long time, I couldn't figure out, what is this big push behind abortion? Why has it, you know, it's an artificial manufactured kind of, it's not even like healthcare system. It doesn't make any sense. It's counterintuitive to every aspect of, like, humanity, you know. That's not how you do it. But then you think, oh, well, wait, I forgot that China, its whole mission statement is to defeat the West and America without ever firing a shot. Okay? So, they know damn well what they're doing. It's all an act of war to them. I don't know. This is how they react, though. All those threats and everything, like that threat from Iran, the threat from, like, Schumer, the threats from China, you know, this is what it was. Like, you're going to be so sorry, America, we're going to mess you up, like, you have no idea, and then this virus. So, yeah, but the more you look into that, the more you'll see that it's really true. Um, how the media went to Russia. You know, like McCarthyism back in the day with Russia, about how the Russians are infiltrating all of our institutions, which was true. But then the Cold War was over. So China is the big dog communist, and has been screwing everybody and us for decades now. So when, and the Chinese like own Biden, they own Clinton, you know, they've been pushing this. Everything's artificial with the Democrats and all that. So, I don't know. The media said that Donald Trump is a Russian agent. Like they know what they're doing, blaming Russia for interference, but really it's the Chinese, and they love the Chinese. I'm going to end it with this. When I was reading about Hinduism, they believe in the renewal of the world, reincarnation, how the world is remade over and over again, and how humanity continues to go through these ages and this cycle, you know, until to give an opportunity for all souls to ascend to Narayan or wherever, you know, the Godhead, back to. So they say that the different ages, like, you know, when Shiva does his dance and the world's destroyed, the world is then remade, and it's beautiful and pristine. And the longer you go through like 4 ages until you enter the age of illusion, which we're in, Kali Yuga, to where everything is illusory. People are really deceived. You know, like you look at an apple and you think it's an orange, and there's stories about how bad it's going to get before Shiva does his little dance of death or whatever, and the world is destroyed and then remade. It's the conditions that people are going to live under, how bad it's going to get. Like human beings, and this is crazy stuff from the Hindus from way back, saying like, okay, there's going to become too many people. Like there will become too many people. People's morality will drop to the lowest, right? They'll destroy everything. They'll kill all the animals. They'll poison all the fruit, right? They'll kill all the animals. They'll like poison all the plants. The earth will stop giving any kind of abundance. People will turn to each other and start eating each other. Okay. All hell breaks loose, like all manner of like hell on earth, until Shiva does his dance. But when you look at the Chai Coms, it's kind of like, hey, they're the great Satan, right? Like, are they trying to lead us into the final stages of Kali Yuga here and abort everybody's kids and eat all the endangered species and poison the planet, okay, and probably turn on each other because they're hungry? I think so. I really believe that China is where, that China has been under the influence of Satan this whole time. The whole time. It doesn't bother me to say it because it's totally true. And they're just sad, pathetic people. I'm sorry. But there's nothing there about China that's any damn good as far as I'm concerned. They don't have anything to teach anybody, you know. They don't have anything to really offer other than a knife in the back. And when you look at how they destroyed their own culture, their own country, you know, Mao Zedong, destroyed his entire country. He tried to destroy the entire history of China, those thousands of years. Okay, destroyed artifacts, relics, and his people went along with it. So they're not blameless, don't tell me that. But, okay, so you know that about China, right before I end here. If you know that China destroyed its own civilization, its own history, what makes you think they don't want to do that to you and your country and your history, and remake your history into their history, right? Because that's what they're doing. It's not hard to figure out. And don't be a useful idiot for them.